What's up, brother? It's your boy Mike Muse. Welcome to the conversation of the Mike Muse Show. I am so excited to be in conversation with my next guest, Mr. Brian Tyree Henry. He is an absolute incredible human being. Before an actor, before an entertainer, he is just an incredible human being. And over the time, I don't know him personally, but I feel like over time I've gotten to know him and to learn his constitution. And it is a solid constitution. You know him as favorite boy from the Atlanta, which is going to be the final season. I'm so sad about that. Amongst some other crazy entities they've been a part of, we're going to do some deep dives on. But without further ado, Mr. Brian, what's happening, sir?
What's going on, man? Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you for that introduction, man. Thank you. I didn't expect that kind of love, but I will always receive it. Also, there's one more season, man. So, like, there's season 4.
Oh, I thought this was gonna be the final.
No. We ain't gonna have y'all coming after us, man. Like, giving you
no,
listen.
No way. Nah. But this makes me feel better about my life. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Like, I've just been like, yo, I didn't want it to end, man. There's been so many.
We got so much more to talk about. There's so much.
That's what I was saying. I was like, I feel like it should be 5, 6, 7, right? I feel like it should stop.
We also can't end Atlanta in Europe. Like, we have to come home. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you know. So
can you imagine?
We never hear the end of it. I know that much.
That would be hilarious if you're in Atlanta in Europe. I mean, talk about plot twists.
Oh, seriously.
Yeah, but listen, before we get started, talk to me about your intentionalities of your jewelry that you're wearing. I feel like there's some intentionality going on.
Sometimes, man, I am a very oral person, and so like I like the clanging and the clinking because I grew up with my mother. You know, my mother was a huge accessory person, and like some of this jewelry is my mother's that I keep on me, but it also is a way for me to feel grounded in myself. Like, I spend so much time in the clothing and body of other characters, like most of the day. So when I get to be me, man, I just want to make sure that I'm always feeling like myself. So accessories do that for me, but also like to just hear the jangle, man, it just makes me feel like it's like some ASMR stuff. I don't know why. It just keeps me grounded, you know.
No, I'm a little bit the same way. So I know that I speak with like a cadence, and I speak with melody. So Brian, fun fact about me is I will conjugate words that should not be conjugated just so it flows with my phrasing, right? So I will put an ing on words that shouldn't have ing. I'll put an ly on words that shouldn't have an ly at the end of it, just because I needed to work with the phrasing, the rhythm, and the melody. And so that's why I'm a fan of conjugation. But I will have on jewelry for that same purpose as well. I think it serves as an accent.
It serves as
it's like the percussion section of
man. I thought I was the only person. Thank you for making me feel part of the tribe, man. Because it's something. It has a lot to do also. Just like, you know, I love African jewelry and, you know, tribal jewelry and things like that. So like, I'll go around with my own like percussion section sometimes just to have the, you know, the feeling of, you know, peace.
So I recently got into wearing stones, and so this is my first stone.
I saw that. I was like, that is. The flavor on that is big, man. That's nice.
Yeah. So I really got into it. I didn't get into it necessarily for the energy property of it. But once I started wearing it, like I started to adopt the energy.
Stones have power, man. Stones have power. Like I just got in. Well, I've been, you know, collecting stones. Like I used to collect them with my mother. So like, and they have properties to them that are incredibly like healing and incredibly restorative. So like, I'm a stonehead.
Yeah, I want to say, speaking of like energy and cleansings, I'm curious about you particular now that we have the understanding and constitution of each other, because sometimes as actors, you guys have to take on so many different characters, right? And I'm curious, do some of these characters ever stick with you, right? And then how do you kind of cleanse yourself of like some of these roles and characters that you have?
That's a great question. It wasn't until the last few years, honestly, that I found space to do that. I believe that once I started in this industry, especially with TV and film, things were moving so fast. I kind of lost my constitution a bit. And so what would happen is that I found that I was doing such, you know, different roles, like with such different ranges over here, you know, that I would come home and couldn't shake them. Like I honestly could not shake these characters. And like, I think it was around like 2020, around the end of 2020 that I actually decided to confront what that was, because I couldn't understand what was going on. You know, the rise of my career also came with a huge grief of me losing my mother. So I wasn't
Mm,
really, I didn't have the tools of understanding exactly what was going on with me emotionally and mentally. And so what I would do is I would use all that and just throw it into the work. You know what I'm saying? I was like, okay, well, instead of confronting this grief today and why I don't want to like get out of bed, why don't I just go to work and put all that into what these characters are? And it wasn't, it was a temporary fix, right? So I've learned lately how to advocate for my own heart because a part of me lives in this weird codependency with my acting where I'm like, you know, I'm the caregiver for
yeah,
everything, you know, like I can take a piece of me, whatever you can't take,
yeah.
I can take. And it's not functional. It's not a way to be really, because there has to be a dichotomy. There has to be a place where Brian can exist and a space where these other men can exist as well. So that is a big part also of the stones and the jewelry and those things
Mm,
like that, because they root me in something. But it took a long time. It's still a process, man. It is still a process of understanding how to unload these men, and because I want to make sure that I'm doing them justice. So I want to make sure that I'm honoring them. I want to make sure I'm honoring their heart. But there's no point of them existing if I'm not honoring my own, right?
mhm.
So I think that that's what I'm learning now, is how to do that, how to create and make space for myself where I have to exist first before I let them exist. It's a work
That's
in progress.
That's really deep and powerful because your roles, I'm just thinking about the role that you play as Paperboy in Atlanta. The show Atlanta, the reason I love Atlanta is satire is, to me, one of the best forms of comedy.
Mhm.
And satire has a way of like moderating social discourse in a way that when it's done right, it's so good.
Right.
And when it's done wrong, it's awful and it shows. But so like, shows like Atlanta and other shows to me really do a good job of moderating social discourse. But then you take, the role that you play to as well, like within Eternals, right? And then that's a whole different layer, like unto itself. When you talk about the codependency, can we lean into that a little bit? Because I never heard that term before.
How far you
Like,
want to
what?
go, bro?
No, go far because I never heard that term codependency before, particularly within acting. Right? I've always been curious about, you know, and I look at you as one of the great actors, right? I've been always curious about. And I hear great actors, like I hear Jamie Foxx talk about how when he played the schizophrenic who was a celloist, how difficult it was for him to shake that character. You think about things that happened with Heath Ledger within the Joker, right? So you think about like these terms and these people that they became this method acting, right? You think
Yeah.
about Daniel Craig Lewis, how he was such an Abraham Lincoln character, right? And so I'm just curious, and I never heard it from a sense of codependency, right? So can we lean into a little bit of that?
Well, you know, I'm doing a lot of personal inventory, a lot of work on myself, and one of the things that came up in this conversation was codependency. And
Mm,
codependency for me was an act of survival, because we are always,
mm,
especially as Black people, especially as Black men, are living in survival mode. That's what we're doing every single day. We never get a chance to really live. You know, we're always surviving something. And so I think for my upbringing, codependency kind of saved me, because there were a lot of things that I was exposed to as a young child that,
mhm.
I had to make a lot of decisions about, like life or death. I had to see relationships that reflected back to me that weren't necessarily the healthiest relationships,
Yeah.
and so what I did instead was kind of internalize that in a way of survival, which then turned out to be codependency. So codependency is basically the need to take care of, to like, it's a compensation of how to survive with the
Yeah.
scenarios and situations that are given to you. Because like, not all scenarios that we find ourselves in, especially as Black people in this country, we ask to be a part of. Like, there's not a lot. We're usually thrown into situations that we haven't really
Mhm.
necessarily asked to be a part of, and we are then told to survive it. Like, we're just so, get
Yeah.
out there, make the best of what you got, because that's what we do as a people. That is literally what we
Mhm.
do as a people, is we survive. That's what we do. And I don't think that we've really been given the tools of how to live within that. You know what I mean? And we're
Mhm.
still finding it every single day. But every single day, what's happening outside is changing how we have to survive. So I find that within my acting, especially with the men that I chose, there was a point, honestly, Mike, that I would get roles and completely forget that I myself, or that this character is a Black man, because I'm playing him, right? So like, I would read it and
Wow.
be like, oh, well, where did he go to school? Oh, where did trying to do all this other like deep work about who the person is, and forgot that before I open my mouth, it's a Black dude. So
Yeah.
there's already things that I'm told that I can't have and shouldn't do and shouldn't be before I even open my mouth. And so
Yes.
I had to then kind of find a way to work through. Like I don't necessarily want to use these characters as ways of working through my shit, but they are ways of working through my shit. Every single character that I've played has a piece of me. Every single one. Like there's no one character that I played that doesn't reflect a part of who Brian is, you know, and that's where I feel like the truth can come, because it's like I don't want to constantly take projects because I'm trying to confront something, you know. I don't want to constantly take projects because I'm rubbing up against something. I want to take projects because I want to breathe life into who these men are, and I want them to have the fullest living they can possibly have. So I had to learn how to do this weird, strange dichotomy of like, leave that dude there and then come in. And I do this on set, honestly. Like as soon as they yell cut, it's Brian mode. It's like I'm laughing, I'm joking, I'm making fun of people, I'm doing stuff being made fun of, you know. And then when it's action, okay, bet. Because it's hard, I think, for us as Black actors to be method. It's just an impossibility, honestly. Like,
wow,
it really is. Like, if I, Brian, decided to go to set of Atlanta and decide to run around with a gun, a bulldog, grams of cocaine, ride around, and you know, I'd be fired, and I'd probably be killed. I'd probably be killed if I lived in that. Like, honestly, and it's like, there is a certain the stakes are higher. You know what I'm saying? The stakes are higher as Black people if we want to be method. And also, if we want to be method, there is a whole life that we have to take on. Like, I'm not going, like, I think about people who had to play slaves, you know what I mean? Who had to play characters in the antebellum South. I'm like, don't be method. Don't be method with that. You don't, there's no reason your ancestors died, so you don't have to be method for that shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, we are always constantly trying to find that like division within ourselves, especially as creatives, to really protect that part of ourselves that is innately us, and then to know when to bring these other characters in. But the whole thing for me is honor. You know, like I'm always constantly trying to honor what these stories are and honor where these stories come from, because I'm always questioning exactly where this came from. You know, like, nobody in my family acts, no one sings, no one does anything like this. I just kind of, this thing, I became the embodiment of this thing. And I always want to honor what that is, because I can't speak to where it came from, but I'm never going to turn my back on it. So I feel like in finding the difference between Brian and the characters, I'm leaving space to honor where this came from at the same time.
Ryan, you've given me so much to unpack here. I never thought about roles could be selected for in terms of codependency. I thought that was something really brilliant that you brought out today. But also, too, I never thought about the context of how Black people cannot be met. I mean, they can, but it's more challenging for Black actors. I'll just say more challenging. It's more challenging for Black actors to be method actors. And that's so true, because a lot of times that we're dealing with, especially when it comes to social issues, we deal with it on a daily basis. And so then to have to be able to take it on as an actor as well as portray it takes a lot of toll on you, right? Which leads me to the narrative of responsibility. And you pulled up a lot. And I think a lot about, I have responsibility every time I'm on the microphone or I'm in front of the camera, when I do social constructs and I talk about discourse or politics about culture, but I have a responsibility not only to myself, but like to my community to get it right. I'm wondering, when it comes to you, when you're selecting roles, do you think about the responsibility of self, or do you think about responsibility to community?
It has to start with self always, because at the end of the day, you are the one going through it. You know, you're the one that is taking this on. You are the one that has to live with it, breathe it, shower with it, feed it. You know, it's you. And because I am doing that, then I'm ultimately already connected to the community, because that's where the power comes, in me serving that, right? And serving it as fully as I can. I often, you know, used to grapple a lot with like, if what I'm doing is serving the culture, right? Like, what we have this concept of culture that we must honor and we must respect, like, because we are a part of it. But also there are parts of the culture that we honor that come out of trauma, right? Like, sometimes that's kind of what culture is like, we went through this trauma, we found a way through it, so we celebrate it and hold it as something like, you know, and then it becomes culture. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's also like, we also have to find our link to what the trauma is. So going back to codependency, going back to the codependency of it, Look, there's a lot of spaces that we live in that don't necessarily make us feel safe and make us feel like we can address the things that we have gone through. So like I find for me that I have a double duty to make sure that I'm taking as much care of this personal space before I go and do anything else for anybody else. You know, what do they say? Secure your own mask before you put on somebody else's mask, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we as a community truly are trying to find these properties that are healing us. Like we're trying to find the healing. And that's what I want to bring to my work all the time is like maybe what I'm doing is healing somebody. Maybe what I'm doing is showing people how to get closer to healing. Maybe what I'm doing is exposing this wound. So therefore people can go, okay, yeah, like let me find a way to heal myself through that. It's terrifying. It's a terrifying thing. Look, these last few years, and we're still in it because we are still actively in a pandemic. Okay, like the pandemic is not over. We are still actively in it. And there needs to be a dialogue about this stuff. There needs to be a dialogue about saying that we're scared. There needs to be a dialogue of saying that we're frustrated. There needs to be a dialogue of saying that we're lonely. There needs to be some kind of flavor that we can connect to each other on without feeling, you know what I mean? Because I find like, look, I'm in therapy. I'm just going to say it out. Like I'm in therapy. I love my therapist. I will never stop going to therapy because it's like, there's a lot of things that we've had to walk around in this world with unchecked, you know, and because that's the thing of being Black, right? We have to be strong. We have to be stoic. We have to be up all the time. We're fighters. That's what we do. But like at some point, we can't always be in survival mode, you know? And I find that most of my characters that I've played are always in a state of survival mode until something happens where it's like, oh, wait, like, you don't have to live that way, actually. You can just be who you are and live as you are, and things will ultimately be okay because you are you. So I think that that's what Brian, am trying to always remember all the time with every part I take, because the parts are getting bigger. The parts are getting like the parts are bigger, and the landscape of these men are getting more vast and wide. So I have to make sure that I come from a place where the well of my heart and soul is full, so that people aren't dipping their buckets in there and just taking the resources over and over and over again. I used to have this saying all the time, is that my well is never thirsty. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't ever want people to think my well is ever thirsty. Sure, come to it and you can draw from it if you want to, but I don't ever want my well to be thirsty. I want it to always be replenished and be full, so therefore it can be shared with other people. It's like, and the only way I can do that is by honestly honoring what's going on in here, you know, like that's the only way. I know it sounds crunchy granola, but like it's true. Like it's like something I've discovered in the last few years that has helped me resolve a lot of these things that I had with carrying the weight of the stories of these men, honestly.
The vastness of these roles are changing, you just mentioned. I'm curious if we can lean a little bit to that more. Do you think it's because society now is more open to different narratives and storylines because we are now seeing our lives is stretching? Or do you think that this is something that the creative world is pushing to get society to be honest with themselves in terms of just how wide-ranging our culture and society is?
I have to believe that the people won't be denied, right? Like I live in a world where I know that the people will not be denied. And if you deny them, then there will be anarchy, right? So like, I think what happened is that you have this class and our predecessors before us that are creating more spaces, you know what I mean? Like we're trying to occupy space. Like you can't continue to write these narratives from a place that you don't necessarily have a voice in and not expect the people to go, we're tired of that. Like we're tired of that. We are tired of the narratives that you have put upon us as a people, when we can actually tell you the narratives about us better than you can. So you might want to make room. And so what's happening now is that the rooms are becoming bigger. The spaces are becoming bigger. We have a lot of ownership, you know, what's happening now. We have far to go. That seems to be the conundrum, right? It's like there's always a little bit further to go, but we at least have now sunk our heels into the sand and we are going forward. Like the people won't be denied. So I find what's happening with me is that like you have to show people how to treat you. You know what I mean? You have to show people. There have been so many roles that I've gotten that I've been told that they can't see it as somebody non-white. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I'll show you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is another thing that I'm trying to learn is I found a lot of my career had been acting in spite of, right? Like because people were like, well, you can't be this, you're too dark, you're too big, you're not this, you're not that, da da da. So I'd be like, oh, okay, bet. You know, like I had something to prove to somebody instead of just occupying the space with what I bring, right? And I feel like a lot of us creatives used to work from places like that of like, well, you say that I can't do it, then let me do, instead of actually finding the barometer of going, actually, I deserve to be here and let me celebrate that. Because what happens is when you're moving in spite of, you never get a chance to celebrate what you did. Like you never get a chance to really like drink that down and digest that you actually earned your place at the table because you deserve to sit there, because you're busy thinking, oh, well, I'm gonna get that studio over there. Oh, I'm gonna get this over here. Oh, I'm gonna do this over here. And like, no, it's not about that. But also I have to also have a double awareness of I can never get too comfortable in the fact that I could be offered this today and then somebody be like, yeah, can you do like this role over here?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, but because look, people are going to try. Like,
oh yeah,
if I learn anything, people are going to shoot their shot, and I can't be mad at people shooting their shot. But what I can do is take inventory about what I deserve to have and how I deserve to be seen. So yeah, the people won't be denied. We're creating more spaces. And it's just reflective of the world we live in. Like we can't continue to make stuff that doesn't reflect the world we live in because it is hazardous to our health. It is hazardous to our development. It is hazardous to our healing. So it's like we have to create the spaces that reflect the world we live in. And it's slow. Like it's slow. But you know, it's happening. And that's why I'm very grateful about doing what I do on Atlanta. Like I was thinking the other day, like how I was in high school, I was a big poster head. Like, man, I would like rip posters out of magazines and like make collages and put them up in my locker, like waiting for them. And I thought about how long it had been since I had seen a billboard with 3 Black men on it. And that's, you know, like that's, or having 4 Black people on it. And it's an abstract art piece, you know, and that's just what it is. And I really want to take a moment. I want to take a moment to celebrate that because I overlook things like that. I overlook that kind of thing. I remember when the Eternals poster came out, I was like, oh, wait. I was like, oh, wait, there's like just like 10 people like just on a beach. It's just like, like it. And I never, ever want to get too far away from remembering what that meant to that Brian back then. You know what I mean? And how that Brian back then really needed to see stuff like that, really needed to know that there was a sense of belonging and a place that was being held for him where he could go and live in that, you know? So
I love that. Even the fact that you can say that Black people can be art, right? How you saying like 3 or 4 Black men are on the poster in art. Even that that's a revolutionary act unto itself, right? Just because that speaks to beauty. You know, art is seen as something beautiful, right? And so that Black men could be seen as beautiful in art and repose versus in some other posturing and positioning. Final question as we wrap, will we see you come back to stage? You know, I love anyone who can do Shakespeare. And I love when you did Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare in the Park. That's my favorite summer activity. Favorite summer activity to do it here in New York City.
Yeah, for sure.
You're Tony nominated. I love Broadway. Will we see you back on the stage at some point?
My heart is always with the stage. It's where I started. It's where my heart will always be on the stage. And I'm gonna tell you, if the project is right, and I will be there in a heartbeat. I'm never leaving the stage. I'm never leaving the stage. So just know
come back to us. I think now knowing your constitution, how grounded you are, and based on energy, I think one, I know you've always killed it because you told me nominated, but I think I would love to see you now understanding the energy transference that you have. Brian, what a great human being you are, a great actor you are, and such a great custodian of culture. So I look forward to having you back on the Mike Muse show soon, buddy.
Thanks a lot, Mike, man. Thank you for everything, man. You're amazing.
Of course, man. All right, talk to you soon, buddy.